Peter Rabbit 2, The Runaway is the movie that I've decided to review on this rainy, kind of gray morning of June 21st, 2021. I know it's been a while, some stuff's been going on, and I've also been lazy, but I've decided to come back to YouTube after 9 days with a review not for Luca, not for In the Heights, but for Peter Rabbit 2, The Runaway. The sequel to the highly successful first movie, apparently highly successful. I barely remember how the movie did. But this movie is about Peter and the rabbits getting a little bit more fame because Bee, Rose Byrne, their mother in a sense, has published a book with artwork about them, so people in the town love it. They're trying to make it go public to everyone around the world, accessible for everybody. But in these meetings, the way they kind of describe Peter kind of upsets him. He kind of goes on a more personal journey afterwards of discovery. He meets up with some criminal rabbits, and he starts to hang out with them because one of them, Barnabas, used to know Peter's father. And the story unfolds from there. The thing about the first movie is that when it was coming out, it had all the makings of like a meme movie. You know what I mean? Not a me movie, I mean a meme movie. Where, you know, you have like a classic character from literature being brought back with like a modern kind of pop culture kind of infused into it to kind of make it more appealing to kids of today. You got a late night talk show host of varying popularity voicing the character. So yeah, this is gonna be awesome. Kids, come to the theater is the exact vibe I got. So I was like, this is either going to be a meme or this is going to be a masterpiece, like my favorite movie, the Emoji Movie, which came out several months before Peter Rabbit. If you all know, I love the Emoji Movie. I love it, love it, love it, love it. Also starring James Corden. So it was either going to be that level of quality or just kind of a meme. And that movie was just kind of meh. Surprisingly so. I wasn't really expecting it to have like the cynical kind of corporate artistic choices made in it, but then also have some moments of like clever humors of like absurdist kind of humor, or some moments of like genuine kind of heart where they don't play any pop songs and they just let a score kind of play at a pivotal moment. So yeah, it was just kind of like a simple meh movie, but apparently it did well enough to warrant a sequel that was supposed to come out last year. It has been a whole year and 2 months, I believe, since it was supposed to come out, and now it's here. It's finally out in theaters because Peter Rabbit 2 is the one that people are going to be rushing back to the theaters to see. That's not a POV movie. No, that's a theater experience right there, despite there only being one family when I saw it like a week ago on a Sunday. All I'm saying is, Luca, I have not seen it, but I feel like, you know, you can put that in theaters and put Peter Rabbit 2 on like VOD, you know what I mean? I don't know what Disney's thinking, but Sony apparently, like, they had their plans mixed up. They should have swapped. But I have not been excited for this movie, only because, yeah, the marketing just looked like maybe a bit more of the same. It still seems like it has a lot of the same issues from the first movie, but maybe that's just the trick of the marketing. Maybe Will Gluck is the kind of filmmaker to learn from the criticism, or like actually look into what could actually make a better movie, and maybe that's what Peter Rabbit 2 is going to be, because the vibe I got from the first movie is that it has its issues, but some of it has a good idea of what it should be, you know what I mean? So I was either expecting that, just a meme, or maybe a little better. And unfortunately I got about a similar experience to the first movie that I did with this one. It's just kind of okay. I'm sure kids will love it, or they'll enjoy a lot of it. Adults might find some things about it to enjoy, but it's just another kind of experience. I was trying to think, like, is this better or like worse than the first Peter Rabbit? Because I feel about the same for both of them, and I honestly can't tell, because I think I might have enjoyed The Runaway a bit more, but at the same time, like, the first movie's kind of simple. Like, I can kind of easily kind of list out like the things that I didn't like, things I did like. This movie has like a lot of things that I actually did surprisingly like, but then other things that I surprisingly did not. So like comparing it, like I did the math, like I had less issues and less pros with the first movie than I do with The Runaway. So I don't know. I feel the same. How about that? I can't rank them because I feel the exact same about both of them. So let me just list out everything that I enjoyed or did not like about this. Let's start off with the things that I did surprisingly enjoy. There are some clever jokes thrown in there that are kind of like, you know, some of the things I liked about the first movie is some of the jokes that they kind of just kind of throw at you. It's kind of like a quick kind of subtle thing, or like the more absurdist ones, like the whole part at the end where McGregor and Peter are trying to get back to the farm. And even though Peter took a train to get to McGregor, in order to get back to the farm, he and McGregor have to take a train, get on a boat, skydive, ride a motorcycle, like all this crazy shit, and it's like, what the fuck is happening? That's like one of my favorite parts about that movie is just when they go like, you know, complete utter nonsense. And there's even some jokes like that, like just completely like absurdist for kids kind of jokes. Like at one point an animal puts up like a crossing sign where, you know, it's the little circle with a line going through, like don't cross here. But then the animal comes back, takes out the line, and the stick figures on like the plaque get up and walk across the street. And I was like, what the fuck did I just see? What is that? It was nuts. And then at another point, McGregor and Rose Byrne are looking for the deer. The deer gets adopted. We'll talk about that later. And they're trying to look for it, and they go into this bar that is open. Customers are there, and there's a deer on a plaque on the wall. And McGregor sees it, and he's like, "No, we're too late! Oh my god!" It has like an emotional breakdown in this bar, and Rose Byrne's like, "Hey, idiot, he's right over there." And like, "Oh, excuse me." And they go over to the other side of the bar. A deer is just like right there. I don't know how Domo Gleason missed him, but they're already like measuring his head for a plaque. They have a plaque right there in the room measuring his head, and it's like, dude, there are customers here. You want to actually like be doing this with people watching? What are you doing? That whole end section of like McGregor and Peter teaming up to save the other animals, that could have been just its whole movie. It's not the whole movie. I don't know if anyone is surprised by that. It's just like a small portion at the end, but I kind of wish it was the whole movie, because then you have like a more simplistic kind of story. You don't have to worry about all this other stuff. The CGI is still good from the first movie. I'd say there's some good visual effects artists working on this movie. They did a really good job working on these animals and making them visually pleasing. I don't want to say there's good action scenes, but there's good like moments of like rabbits being chased, or them having to get out of a certain situation, them pulling off a heist on a farmer's market. Like there's some fun sequences that they craft and they stage really well. At certain points of this movie, they actually like play score instead of just overly relying on a pop soundtrack. And I think I was more shocked by that. At certain points, I actually like took in the score that was playing, as opposed to the first movie where I don't remember a single fucking thing about it. I was like, oh my god, it's actually kind of enchanting, even if it might just be because I've been listening to nothing but pop songs throughout the rest of this movie. I'm actually kind of enchanted by this score. It's nice. Rely on music more, please. For the most part, all of the actors do a pretty good job once again. Like, there's an actress who replaces Daisy Ridley as Cottontail, who I was honestly kind of amazed by, because if you didn't know Daisy Ridley wasn't back, you wouldn't be able to tell, because this actress, Amy Horn, I believe is her name, does such a great job doing that voice, doing that kind of Daisy Ridley kind of voice. She's really great. But also, you know, all the other actors are doing fine too. You know, they got rid of Margot Robbie's lisp that she had for one of the two rabbits whose name sounds familiar to each other. I don't know if they got letters about it. I know they got flack for the peanut allergy thing from the first movie, but I don't know if the lisp was something that they got flack for either, or maybe they were just changing before they could. Either way though, like, the actors still do a fine job with what they have to do, and the voice actors, of course, are all talented. There's aspects to the storytelling that I also, like, legitimately kind of liked, and I could see like being like a good story, you know, like making up a good story. Like, there's this whole corporate thing that Rose Byrne has to go through with David Oyelowo, who's kind of trying to get Peter Rabbit to the point of accessibility, publish the book everywhere as opposed to just this little town self-publishing wise. And the meta kind of commentary that kind of comes with it, I was like, I kind of like how you could be going about this and actually kind of teaching kids about how this all kind of works. Because, like, for a kid, like, there's actually some insightful things that you can learn with how some of this stuff is made. But then mostly there's also like this fatherly theme that they inject just in time for Father's Day, even though that was yesterday. Whoops. Like, they inject like this fatherly theme, like, you know, McGregor wants kids. Peter's worried about what that can mean because he sees Rose Byrne as like his surrogate kind of mother. And he's already kind of wary of like McGregor kind of filling in as like a surrogate father because his parents are dead. So when he meets this rabbit Barnabas on the street and, you know, says he knew his dad and talks all this big stuff about him, and he's kind of enchanted by that. Like, I kind of like seeing where that was going. Like, there is a certain point where it might be a little predictable for the average audience member, but I was sitting there watching it kind of unfold, and I was like, this makes total sense as far as like a character arc goes for Peter, and I really am liking like a little bit more of a mature route to take with this storyline. I think they're doing a pretty solid job with that. Let's now shift over into the cons, because that's about it as far as like the things that I did like. That's a lot of why I think it's just meh, and here's the other half of why I don't think it's like a great movie or even good. First off, how it kind of connects to the first movie, just as far as like what they do for a sequel. At first it just kind of felt like, things are just being stated and you're just supposed to ride with it without there being like a proper transition from how we left the characters in the first movie to now. Rose Byrne has just all of a sudden started publishing these books, self-publishing, and is apparently really popular, and the rabbits are all really popular now, and that's great. McGregor's running it, but all of a sudden he also wants kids, even though it's kind of dropped in out of nowhere, where he's just like, I can't wait for my own kids, you know what I'm saying? It's like, was this a factor in the last movie? I barely remember. But there's also this point where Peter is like, he's kind of described as like a mischief maker, and he kind of has like an existential crisis about it. He's like, I'm not a mischief maker. I just do stuff that's like right, don't I? I don't know. And it's like, I feel like in the first movie you actively acknowledge like, yeah, I'm doing this shit. Look at that. Look at that bad shit I did right there. I feel like he actively knew what he was doing, and this movie, in order for it to work, you have to buy into this like just lovable, naive side of Peter that I just don't think he has. It's a lot of it has to do with the writing, but it doesn't help that it's James Corden, you know what I mean? I don't hate James Corden. I just feel like him in movies, a lot of the times it's a miscalculation. I do like him in some stuff. I remember seeing him for the first time in Into the Woods and going like, that's great. Look at that guy. He's really good at what he does. I don't watch his talk show. I don't think I watch anything regarding his talk show except for Carpool Karaoke occasionally when it's just being played by like my parents. But I don't watch it for long. I leave the room after a while. But like, I don't hate him. I think he can be really good, but just I feel like from the get-go, him as Peter Rabbit has always been like a bad casting choice. Like, he plays it in like that, hey, how are you? I'm Peter Rabbit. I'm James Corden as well. I'm gonna snarky and I'm just like James Corden. How's it going? And it's like, oh God. And it doesn't help that the writing just, it doesn't feel right for what the character should be. So all this time I'm watching this character going like, you are heavily unlikable. There's certain things they also carry over from the first movie, like some narration from Margot Robbie, who I love Margot Robbie, and once again, she's good as this rabbit that she plays, but I don't know why they feel the need to have narration moments, because I know they even have a post-credit scene where they show like, hey, it's like a storybook, we're literally reading a storybook, wink wink, but it's like, I feel it's narratively confining, like you don't really connect to certain things or emotions the way you should by just experiencing events with characters, because all of a sudden there's a narrator going, and then Peter felt kind of bad about what was going on, and then this happened, and it's like, I don't need to hear about it, Narration should be used sparingly in things, but some people get the wrong idea. And there's also like, once again, I mentioned the soundtrack. There's some pop songs they put in where I was like, just play score. We don't need this. But those are kind of minimized compared to how it was used in the first movie. Like, the narration and soundtrack weren't as overbearing as they were in the first one, but it was still something they carried over that was not needed. So that's kind of like lumped into like one category of stuff they brought back from the first movie, minimized, but is still there. Unfortunately, there are still some bad jokes in this. I would say they mostly come from Peter himself, that are just kind of like, can we not? It's not really funny. And also this corporate subplot that I mentioned earlier, eventually it just divulges into David Oyelowo screaming at Rose Byrne like, you will never go anywhere without me. I'm the only person that'll make Peter Rabbit successful. You better believe it. That's what's happening right now. And it's like, I as much as like it's fine meta commentary for kids, all of a sudden it's now becoming the usual drivel we get whenever this kind of storytelling comes into a kid's movie. And I would like to see a kid's movie where they're just kind of realistic about certain things. Like, hey, yeah, there's a lot of like corporate execs, producers and stuff that make bad choices just for the sake of money and all this shit. But there's still people with jobs that just need to get paid or just trying to live a life. They're not just over the top screaming like David Oyelowo is in this movie. But I also like started to think about that even further than that. Like, for all this talk of like, Rose Byrne's character literally saying a line like, you better not make this into a movie and make it like some sassy pop culture infused like redo or whatever. Like, for all the mentions of that, for all of the meta jokes about like, hey, we're gonna do this and this, it's not like they're really saying anything, they're just kind of stating like, yeah, this is stuff that happens. It's not going to stop us from doing the exact same thing for this movie or even that first movie. sue us. Like, we don't care. And it's like, yeah, ultimately it just kind of comes down to, we just want to be meta just to poke at the critics. But we're not going to do anything to change. This is who we are. We will always be the corporate Sony overlords. On the one hand, I want to give them somewhat props for just laying it out there. Like, yeah, this is what we're about. Deal with it. Yeah, we can use it for like a antagonist for a movie, but you know, we're still gonna do it. Who cares? I almost want to give them props just for having the balls to do that in the first place. But I'm not giving them any points because they're lazy about it, you know? Like, yeah, they're literally just stating this is what we're doing. And that's it. That's all they have to say. There's like a big portion of this movie's plot that hinders on adoption, animal adoption, and apparently how fucking quick it is. And apparently how an animal control like organization can get an animal off the street, put them in a cage like immediately for customers to see. Like, not a cage in the back, a cage up front, and customers can just go up to it immediately after you put this animal in and go like, I want that one, mommy, whether it be a dog, cat, rabbit, deer, porcupine, all this shit, and you can get it immediately. No shots, no health checks or for the animals or anything like that. Just, all right, sure, take the fucking animal. We don't care. We literally don't care. And it's like, I know that this is London, but I don't think this is how that works at all. Like, you wouldn't just like pull an animal off the street, like if it's like rabid and running wild, and like just put it up for adoption immediately and just let it be sold. Like, that's not how this works. But there's a lot of this plot that hinders on that idea being possible. Of like, yeah, this shit happens all the time. It's like, no, it doesn't. I feel like a kid would watch that and go like, I don't think that's how that works. But in fear of looking like an idiot, they don't say anything and just let it ride. Ooh, and to close it all off, there are a lot of technical problems with this movie. Like, there's some, like, times they'll switch to GoPros and it's like, oh god, this again. Like, it's so noticeable. Please stop switching to GoPros. It's so noticeable, the camera quality change. It's awful. There's moments where, you know, CGI-wise, there's certain parts where, like, McGregor's rolling down a hill, and then for the big gag at the end, we're going to then insert a digital rubber body of his so he can, like, bounce down the hill. And it's like, ugh. That's kind of ugly, and it looks awkward because it doesn't look real, because it's not. There's a part later where, like, his car is rolling down a hill, and he's like, no, no, no! Eventually, that running down the hill, once he gets far enough away, his body turns digital, and he jumps on the car, and like, oh no! But it looks awful. It looks digital and rubbery. Ugh, gross. But there's one thing technically about this movie that astounded me. It baffled me. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. You know the boom mic thing. Every once in a while, sometimes you will see a movie where, you know, there might be a little dip, and it's like, uh-oh, there's the boom mic, or it might already be in the shot, and you might like, that's already in the shot. Maybe they could have cropped it, I don't know, but usually it's off to the side. It might not be even visible to you immediately, like, because your attention should be on the character. I don't think I have ever seen in a big budget kind of movie a shot where the boom mic is so obviously at your point of attention. Just right there staring at you in the face. Now, I don't know if Sony is going to notice this and be like, ooh, we gotta edit this out for the home release, so this might be completely invalidated by the time the Blu-ray comes out, but I might have to check the Blu-ray once it comes out just to see if it's still there. I kind of hope it is. Like, if it was good enough for theaters, why try to cut it out? You have movie studios all the time now kind of trying to cut out all their mistakes when people talk about it, so that when it comes out on Blu-ray, they're like, what mistakes? You know, even Netflix does it, like A Fall from Grace. A lot of people were looking at that because Tyler Perry made it, and it had a lot of production problems. And it was clear through the editing of the movie that everything was present. But then once that started to get attention, Netflix went in, did some undercover editing, and they were like, what editing mistakes? What script on the judge's desk? What extra pretending to eat and drink water at a restaurant? And it's like, if you thought it was good enough to put on streaming, then just leave it, you hacks. Streaming was a mistake. So if it's been edited out, I guess ignore this. This is completely invalidated, but there is a part in this movie where Cottontail is like, in the corporate meeting where we first meet David Oyelowo for the first time, there's a shot where Cottontail lifts up a bowl of water and is like chugging it. And in the reflection, because your attention is focused on, yeah, the rabbit is drinking water this way, that's hilarious. You see in the glass reflection, there is a boom mic, like right in front of it. And I was like, What the fuck? What is that doing there? It might have been up there for like only like a couple seconds, but when it's so plainly obviously a boom mic, that's far too long. And even like looking at it closely, I was like, is that the fucking script? Like at the bottom of the bull's reflection? Is that the script? What is going on? It was someone reading the script while they were trying to capture like the noise of like water sloshing. Is that what was going on? Or what is, how did this happen? Like, in a shot that's mostly visual effects because they might have been in a real place, but, you know, a CGI rabbit is lifting the bowl. There's other CGI rabbits there. How do you not CG out the mic? What is this? Oh my god. I was astounded at how lazy that was. Jesus Christ. So overall, another meh experience from Peter Rabbit. I might have enjoyed this a bit more than the first one, but honestly, I don't know. I think my problem is that just overall, like, Peter Rabbit is just so unlikable, but this movie has other aspects of the storytelling that I like in concept. I like some of these other things that they're trying to put in. Maybe if they focused on the other characters instead of always focusing on Peter Rabbit, this would have been more enjoyable, because I definitely like seeing them more than Peter Rabbit, but what can you do? Apparently, they might make another one, who knows, because they have a post-credit scene where they hint at it, like, hey, you know, we might be able to make another one, as Peter Rabbit literally looks at the camera. It's like, this is annoying. There's so many meta jokes in that end credit scene, it sucks so bad. I'm gonna give Peter Rabbit 2: The Runaway a C+. It's not that bad, but it's still a bad movie, you know? It's exactly like the first one in that sense, where there are certain things that kids will enjoy about it, might even love, but I think parents just might be able to pick out some things, but ultimately go like, I don't want to watch this again. If they make another one, alright, we'll see how that goes, but I don't know, man. What else is there to say? It's James Corden's Peter Rabbit show. Psh. I'm literally lost for words at this point. I don't know how else to describe this. But if you've seen Peter Rabbit 2: The Runaway, leave in the comments below what you thought of it. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.